Rich Sutter joining us from Lethbridge. He's just texting me. Here he is. How you doing, Richie?
Fantastic.
We all are. I tell you what, in the rink, have you been into the sport?
No one would listen anyway, so.
I know, exactly.
Right?
Have you been, there might be a dumb question, but have you been in the Sportsplex since the Canes got back playing out there in Lethbridge? I assume you have?
I have.
Well, it's funny. I won't say who the scouts were. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but they're in the east side of the arena here. We're on the north side. We intersect in the bathroom. So it's like, hey, how's that go? Everybody's smiling behind their mouths because they're back watching hockey. That's why everybody's so happy. Isn't it nice?
It is. Are they playing all the games in the Agrodome? Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
It's different. It's different than the Central.
It's great to have the extra rinks down there to practice, so that's a perfect spot.
Yeah, well, it's a 5-minute road trip every game for me. I couldn't be happier, Rich.
We walk into the Impact Center here, Rod, and you can only go to one section, and the bathroom's right there, and you can't go anywhere else. You're in that door into the building, and you're right out.
Oh, I know. And I was talking to Taylor Shire here from Global. You saw the interview. You were watching it early. Same thing. You said you went 3 games?
Yeah.
But you're like, I might as well just go home because you can't visit. You can't move around, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's fine. We're just happy to be in the bubble. And actually, that's where I'll start, Rich. 24 games for each division. Are you getting enough as a scout out of that to prepare for the draft at the end of June for the National Hockey League?
Well, yes and no. I think if the homework has been done a year out in terms of knowing who this group is coming forward and who, what you're looking at, then you should have a pretty good understanding. But again, you still want to see growth. You still want to see development within structure, how these guys play as individuals and how they play as a group. That's what does make it a little bit difficult for the amateur guys that are scouting these games. For me, the games that I am getting to, I'm more interested in the older player and see how they are doing, and more of the reserve lists of other teams' drafted players. So, yeah, it's a tough sell. It's a tough job for these guys that are trying to cover as much as they can in as little time as possible at the shortened schedule and the shortened timelines.
By the way, there's a war erupting in our comments section here from viewers about Connor Bedard. So he's 1.89 points a game, Rich. And somebody brought up McDavid. He's around 2 points per game in the show. Well, the Pats and the CHL put out a stat the other day that he's ahead. Connor Bedard's ahead at 15 of where McDavid and Tavares were at 15. And the older guys like yourself and myself, the people are saying they're comparing him to Marcel Dion. Okay, you got to go back a ways. You played against Marcel in the Purple Haze. What's the word out there on Bedard and what the guys are seeing on tape or on TV?
Well, I get Reed Jackson is watching games. Columbus, we have some of our guys there too. Son Lucas is also watching games on video at this point, live right now, but we'll be in the building right away as well. So the bottom line is what I'm hearing from these young guys is something pretty special about what kind of player this guy is. And what little video I have seen some, of course, Reed sending me stuff. So it's pretty, look, these kids nowadays are so much faster. They're so much more skilled. They're so much more developed at earlier ages just because what's available for them to train with and just the means and the wherewithal, like how to train properly and what they're putting in their systems to become better athletes and then better players. So I think Connor Bedard is miles ahead of people that you can compare about, the timelines of Marcel Dion's era, and I think even 10, 12 years ago, to tell you the truth. I mean, Strusher and John knew what they were getting when they got this player. At least they know they had a real good idea what they're getting, and they're certainly got to be very happy what they're seeing right now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, with the Marcel Dion, we were trying to find a player that was built like a C battery, that was a right-handed shot and was somewhat shifty. Well, who else besides Marcel Dion? He's like the first guy that comes up. Last one on this. Robin in Prince Albert says, would the point product be the same for Bedard if it was a full season with all the teams and rosters? It doesn't matter what it would be. It would be at least that. And by the way, he's on a team that's in second last place, and he's still getting 2 points per game.
I think Roddy's only going to get better. I mean, he's only going to get more acclimated to the league, knowing how to play against these guys at this point that are only at this point bigger and stronger than him. His skill, his wisdom, his IQ, his skating, everything just comes to the forefront at some points over the course of the night, every night.
Okay. Boy, Rich, they want to talk about it. And I'm going to move on here, but just one more from Nelson Hakowicz. He says, based on a team's trajectory, what team does Bedard end up with come his draft year? That's 2.5 seasons away, subject to a lottery. So it's whoever will have the number 1 overall pick in the summer of 2023. That's what 23. It'll be. Yeah, so you can't say what team will get him. Anyways, they all want you, if you can, to talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Laine situation. It's tough slugging down there. Yeah, I know. What do you want to say about that? Anything?
Well, look, Patrik Laine is a hell of a hockey player, and he's going through some tough times right now. He's playing on a team that, where he's got to work a little bit differently. He's got to work a little bit harder to, he hasn't got the Mark Scheifele's and the Nick Ehlers and the Blake Wheelers of the world, these guys that are great puck distributors and high-end players, to just dish him the puck. We're in a transition with our group, I feel right now, that, look, we are going to get him his centerman at some point, and it's going to be sooner than later. That will make his life easier for him. He's learning that he's got to work a little bit harder than maybe he's accustomed to. He's got to play a little bit deeper into his own end a little bit more than he's accustomed to. He's got to change his game and just a little bit to become a better player. And that for his own is going to be for his own good moving forward. It will make him a better player. He wants to be a better two-way player, a player that can play the longer ends of the rink in terms of 200 feet, not 180 feet more often. So, look, Patrik Laine is going to be a real special player for our organization moving forward, and we have no long-term worries about where that's going. We also want to, you look at Jack Roslovic, who's also an important part of this trade. Here's a guy that I always felt was a number 2 center material all the way along, coming out of amateur hockey. Never played a shift in the NHL at center ice till he came to Columbus. So he's learning to play center on the fly in the best league in the world. Yes, he was a centerman growing up, but look, he still never played center in the NHL. He played right wing. And so he's learning to play the nuances, the subtleties of the game at the elite level. And there's some nights where he's good at it. There's some nights where he's not, quite frankly. And it's kind of like we've thrown him into the fire a little bit. And so he's learning on the fly. He will only get better for it. And I think over the course of the summertime, you take time back to reflect, watch video, watch your game. He will become a better player for sure by next fall time for our group. And when he does, so will Patrik Laine, along with what we will help him with, and we will be a better team for it.
Yeah, well, you talk to Jets fans, and they will say habitually Laine was the hardest working player on the team for the Winnipeg Jets. So, like you say, there's a feeling something didn't work, but there's not
sure what that means by that, but
well, they got rid of him for a reason.
Player.
Yeah, well, he was on the score sheet all the time, so maybe he wasn't working 100%, but he was a factor most nights. What's your read, because you're so connected on the Philly scene, on Gostisbehere being placed on waivers today with his big contract?
Well, I was really surprised, Rod, to tell you the truth. He's had a pretty good year. He's at 11 points in 25 games. I know, and people look at the numbers and go, well, that's a good year. But I look beyond numbers. That's my job, is to know what goes on beyond the numbers. And I think that, Shayne means well. He's a solid teammate. He protects his teammates. He sticks up for his teammates. And I think it goes back. Look, it's none of my business how the Flyers run their hockey club, but I think somewhere along the line that the comments he made last week about where this team had to be in a better place in terms of players playing certain ways and playing well. And I think the comments he's also made certainly about protecting and supporting Carter Hart. The thing that came out of that in the last 2-3 days was very weird to me, knowing Carter Hart. Carter Hart is a kid that someone who would know very locally in Regina is cut from the same cloth as Sam Steele. I mean, these kids grew up together, high character kids, great families. And it just seems like there's a lot of questioning about Carter Hart's, I guess, his work habits, his commitment to being a better player, a better goalie. And I think what Shayne did was Shayne simply stood up for him and called bullshit on it. And it probably ruffled some feathers.
Well, you know what? Carter's young enough that he can figure it out because he's still the future in goal for our country and for the Philadelphia Flyers. Yeah, and he's a tremendous goalie. By the way, Winnipeg's woken up. Jeff in Winnipeg, Jeff Cavella says, Laine, scoring yes, back checking, he was finally doing last season. Nobody back checks with the Winnipeg Jets, by the way. Don't just put that on Laine. Jennifer Illingsworth says, the Laine trade reminds me of the Hall trade. Maybe a great player, but maybe not great off the ice. Who knows? But look how the teams are doing where they are now. Hey, what'd you think of your brother's comments on Johnny Gaudreau on the weekend? Oh my God, on the 500th game.
Well, it's tough when it's true, right? And look, I got some good friends in the media in Calgary, and it's funny how they go back and forth on players about how they can be hard on players and then how they tend to protect certain players. But yeah, it was Johnny Gaudreau's 500th game, and good for him. But I saw his 499th game. It wasn't very good. And when you need to be, you're supposed to be one of the team's most skilled and talented players. You need to be one of your most skilled and talented players every night. And on his game 499, he was horseshit. So, quite frankly, and all the coach was saying was, well, I hope he's better than he was in his last game. And, people can read into what they want, but if that's what it takes to have to motivate a hockey player, makes that kind of money and says how much he loves the Calgary Flames, well, it's pretty sad that you got to motivate people in certain ways.
Yeah, but it's just great that I know how beloved Darryl is, not only in the city, but by the franchise, right? So there's not maybe a lot of coaches that could say that, but Darryl can. I know who's going to win that battle when push comes to shove.
Well, look, Darryl, there's ability and there's certainly talent in that roster to do well. There's just something missing with that group. I mean, but look, they're not the only team that has those issues. I mean, quite frankly, it's hard to win in this league. And if your best players aren't your best players every night, Rod, and playing to that ability, you're not going to win. And it doesn't matter who you play against. And it's a bounce here, it's a bounce there. It's a bad play here, it's a missed check. It's a goal that shouldn't go in that the goalie's supposed to stop or should be stopping. And it's a fine line in this league, and it's very, very hard to win. And if you are not on top of your game and your best players are not your best players, you're not going to win. It's
absolutely. A fantastic visit. Thank you, Richie. Appreciate it. I'll give you a ring this afternoon. Thanks for the time here today.
You bet. Thanks, Rod.
Our hockey analyst Rich Sutter, and our visits with Richie brought to you by Original 16 from Great Western.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.